This is VOCM Open Line. Call 709-273-5211 or 1-888-590-8626. The views and opinions of this program are not necessarily those of this station. The biggest conversation in Newfoundland and Labrador starts now. Here's VOCM Open Line host Paddy Daly.
Well, good morning and welcome to Open Line. I'm Brian Callahan in for Paddy Daly again today on this Thursday edition of the program. Finally feeling some of those warmer spring breezes out there this morning and even yesterday, but it really feels like still a bit of a tug of war, between winter and spring. Cooler tomorrow again, but then the temps rise again. It seems just in time for Mother's Day this Sunday. Dave, I'm hearing some music in my ear there. I don't know what that is. It's lovely and soothing, but there we go. So, yeah, I mentioned the warmer spring breezes felt yesterday. Reminder for going to warm up again around Mother's Day, I think. So not that anyone needed a reminder to show some love for Mom, which I know we don't need a day to do that. Should be showing Mom the love all year long, right? So I mentioned the warmer spring breezes felt yesterday. Unfortunately, those breezes carried a lot of smoke and the smell of it from several forest fires that seemingly sparked out of nowhere yesterday. It's like, not sure what it says about the forest fire season, which was declared earlier than usual this year, given the drier winter we had. So looks like they were onto something for sure. But if you're in the metro area, St. John's, anywhere yesterday, there was, I think there was a fire in Foxtrap CBS area, then, which I'm sure contributed to the smoke mostly in Metro. It blanketed some of St. John's, so we had that ominous orange haze over the city all of last evening, and of course the smell. And there were also fires near Badger and elsewhere on the Avalon, including and especially the Adams Cove area and Western Bay area north of Carbonear, where the RCMP have closed roads, evacuated homes, while sadly and tragically and devastatingly, houses and structures have been destroyed. We're hearing possibly 10 to 12 houses or buildings in that area, some without power still this morning. And actually, just to show, we're going to call out and we're going to try to get the minister, and I know there are going to be officials speaking this morning, but VOCM's Brian Medore just caught up actually just a few moments ago to get the latest, spoke with Town Councillor Paul Adams in Small Cove. Dave, we got that interview that Brian just did.
Give us the latest, Paul, what as much as you know anyway.
Yesterday evening, pretty much the government emergency preparedness and everything else, and forestry, everyone, we had a big meeting with those guys, and after that we decided it was necessary to put in our emergency plan, and so we activated that last night. So with that, the area has been evacuated and closed as you come down through our community partway into Adams Cove. So the fire spread from Adams Cove into Western Bay. Once you get into Western Bay, that's a unincorporated area, so we have no jurisdiction there. But our area of Adams Cove is still closed, and the road is still closed, access only to fire and police. And that's still what we maintain there. That's all we have for this morning at this moment.
Any idea how many people were evacuated and where they went?
I don't have any real numbers, but Adams Cove itself is quite small. There's probably only 100 people total that live down there, and a lot of them are summer homes. Western Bay has a population somewhere around 400, I know it all hasn't been evacuated as far as I know.
Well, just give me an idea of the devastation, the damage done by that fire. What can you tell me there?
I've only seen a few pictures because I've actually been out of the community. I have some people here on the ground, my maintenance guys and the mayor's in the town right now. I've been dealing with it a bit remotely, but I've just seen the pictures and the number of houses that have gone and stuff. I don't have any actual numbers or visuals myself.
What's the transportation situation? The main highway is closed, I understand, at Adams?
The main highway is still closed there in Adams Cove, heading down towards Beattyburg.
So what's the order of the day? What's the plan now?
We're waiting. I assume there will be another meeting here with the government and stuff to determine, in forestry, to determine what the hot spots are, and they do feel that it's going to get under control today with the weather being better than it was yesterday, and I hope that we see an end to this sometime before too long today, and then we'll have to do an actual assessment of the damage and see what we can assist people with.
Some areas are prone to wildfires, forest fires, but it's kind of rare for this area, as far as my memory goes.
It's actually not. We had 3 or 4 last year about this time, small ones in this same area of the track that runs along.
Okay.
There was actually one in the town the day prior, a small one that the fire department managed to get underway. There's a lot of grassy areas, and that tends to what causes it, I think.
Paul Adams, Town Councillor, Small Point, thanks very much for this.
And that was Brian Medore in our newsroom. Thanks for that, Brian. Just recorded an interview. Got off the phone a few minutes ago with Paul Adams, that was, Town Councillor in Small Cove. You heard him mention there, the grassy and the dryness in the area. I know they're trying to get water bombers up. I think we had an interview earlier this morning again with Jerry Lynn Mackey and Russell Bowers with Peg Norman and Jerry Rogers, who live out in that area, and we're talking about the fog in the area. They're trying to get water bombers up, but the weather is kind of keeping them grounded. That's, of course, a little bit unofficial, but it was just last month. Just remember that just a couple of weeks ago, really, that the province confirmed a $17 million contract to fix the province's 5th water bomber in time for next year, not this year. So the question will be asked, of course, and is being asked, are we good for this year? If this is any indication, it's only May, after all, already. So we're trying to get the minister or one of the officials here on the line this morning to speak to this. I believe there will be a formal update around 10 a.m., possibly. But we're here for the next hour to get the very latest if one of the officials or anyone with forestry or emergency preparedness. We have calls in and that sort of thing, but, it doesn't hurt to mention it verbally. So to get a solid update, beyond refreshing the forest fire page and social media posts from people affected. They're busy enough, right? That's not to say we don't want to hear from people on the ground out there, as we just heard with the councillor. That would be greatly appreciated too if you are in a safe position to do so and try to give us a bird's eye view or a first-hand account of what you're seeing and where you are and how this is affecting. We know that there are shelters set up in the area. Pursalvic Elementary, I believe, is a main area for anyone who has been displaced. And if you want to give us a shout here to tell us exactly what's going on, what you see, what you feel, what you may, sadly, unfortunately, I hope not, but may have lost, and the situation you're in, 1-888-590-VOCM and 709-273-5211 in the metro area. And on that note, when did all forest fires become wildfires all of a sudden? It just feels like the terminology, just like in many other sectors, is changing. The words we use, and it may seem like a small thing, but in the world of journalism and just reporting, consistency is a thing. It's a big thing. So when a forest fire becomes a wildfire, maybe it just, forest fires get out of control, and we've always called them forest fires out of control. But I guess maybe the winds, is there a gauge or a bar that has to be surpassed to call it a wildfire? I don't know. Anyway, that's just the way my mind works. So I mentioned Mother's Day there, coming up this Sunday. We could talk about our moms and the love of our moms, or we could talk about some other love that's being showed and showered today on a certain Ontario-based hockey team. I'd be remiss if I didn't mention. And the stat that sticks out this morning, and there are a lot of them, is the fact that this is potentially the farthest the Leafs have gotten in the playoffs since 1987. That's 38 years ago. Or if you prefer, the closest they've gotten to the Cup since then, having last won it, as we all know, in 67, 20 years earlier than that, so 58 years ago. 58 years ago. So Leafs fans now are already bordering on insufferable, but credit where credit is due. They do indeed look like a different team under new coach Craig Berube. They're leading. They're holding leads. They're coming back, showing resilience, winning with both goalies. Now I know it's early, and while they are looking good against the defending champs Florida Panthers, I'd still advise against jinxing it with any talk of parade routes yet. But you just can't get in their heads, right? Elsewhere, last night, Jeps dropped a tough one at home against Dallas, 3-2, and all goals scored in the second period in that one. And tonight, the Oilers in Vegas are back at it with Edmonton up 1-0. Carolina and Washington resume with the Canes up 1-0 against Ovi and the Caps. And if you're in the Paradise area today, You can always, why not drop into the Double Ice Complex there, support a great cause. The Hockey Helps the Homeless tournament is ongoing at the Double Ice today from 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. They've been going now for a little over an hour. And, of course, all in support of Choices for Youth. You don't get many better causes than that. So former NHL players, local players, and stars from the TV show Shoresy, if you've seen it, including our one and only Terry Ryan, former Hab himself, will be on hand for the event. That should be a work out there, a bit of fun. And it's been on the go for a couple of decades, of course, this Hockey Helps the Homeless. But it's the first time they've made their way here. In the time that they've been doing this for a few decades. So drop by and support if you can. And, of course, with all the hype around Jacob Lewis, forgot all about Will Carter, who's still in the running for America's Got Talent. I don't want to jinx it, so I won't say it. But can you imagine? That's all I'm saying. Moving on. Let's see. Dave, what do we got? 9:10. Do you want me to take a short break and then go right to our first? Yeah, because I don't want to be gabbing when we got other people who want to do it for me. So let's take a short break. Brian Callahan in for Paddy again today on Open Line. We'll be right back. And welcome back to the program. Sticking with a little bit of breaking news, some farther afoot from Newfoundland and Labrador. Just a bit of an update. There is black smoke, not white smoke, coming again from the Sistine Chapel, which means the 133 cardinals gathered to elect a new pope have not reached a consensus again. So that's the end of the second round of voting, and so no consensus. So we'll keep an eye on that. But that was just about an hour and a half ago that the black smoke came out. And who wants to be the one to put the wrong thing in the chimney, hey? Ooh, that'd be a mistake. In any event, that's the latest from Rome. Let's come back to Newfoundland and Labrador and go right to line number one. And let's speak with Tom Badcock on line number one. Good morning, Tom. You're on the air.
Good morning, Brian. How are you this morning?
I'm okay. Not a few things going on, busy times, but that's what keeps us in business. Hey, bye.
It does, yeah. Now, before I get to my point, I was raised out in Bradcove, where all those fires are now. That's where I grew up. That's where I went to high school.
Wow. Do you recall it?
Still have a lot of friends.
Do you recall it being like sort of a tinderbox out there? I mean, I heard the councillor earlier say that, they often have a few little flare-ups like that around it, and it's such a heavy tourist area, with Northern Bay Sands and all that sort of thing.
It is. I used to have a cabin out there on Western Bay Line many years ago, and of course there's forest areas out there. There's berry grounds and a commercial operation out there. So there's a lot of things around, and as you know, people might believe with all the rain we've had, but it is very, very, very dry. And so my thoughts are the people out there. I still have a lot of friends out there. My mom and dad have long since passed, but my brother was talking to some friends out there yesterday about it. So I hope the fog clears up. I was listening this morning to Jerry Rogers, and I hope the fog clears up to get the water bombers out there to be able to help put the fires out there.
Yeah, and it's also troubling, where there's nothing confirmed. I don't want to start anything, but there's a lot of talk about natural or man-made fires, and let's just hope that these were, they're never good, but the preventable ones are the ones that should not be happening, and let's just hope that this wasn't anything near the wall.
That's right. The reason I'm calling this morning, first thing is that I got a text from one of my staff yesterday saying, call in and tell them everybody we're having a craft sale at the hub at the end of the month on Saturday the 31st. Anybody wants to have a table, to give us a call, and we'll certainly book a space for them. But the main reason I called this morning is I spoke to Patty a couple of weeks ago about a lady with a disabled son who is back and forth to the Miller Center all the time. And she called me looking for help to see if we could find accommodations for him. I'm happy to say that I think she's found accommodations, and we're waiting to get things straightened away. It's got some accessibility issues, but we're dealing with that. And hopefully we'll be able to get her. She works from home. She's a single mom, so it's not of any importance where she's located as long as she has access to the internet. So hopefully we'll get that straightened away. She will be needing a little bit of financial help with the move, so once we find out what those details are, I'll call back and see if I can put my hands in a few people's pockets and get a few donations. But that issue raises the other point of, Patty, of, I spend most of my day dealing with, not Patty, I'm sorry, Brian, most of my day dealing with people with the issues of this nature. This afternoon at 1 o'clock, I'm meeting with a lady whose son is not, disabled son has not filed a tax return since 2020. So I'm trying to get that straightened away for her. I'm in court later on this month with a young man charged with sexual assault and finding legal aid to represent him, and I'm dealing with housing issues, and of course, most recently dealing with all the issues of people trying to complete the disability tax credit. Now, when somebody calls me, of course, I don't say, are you blind, are you deaf, do you have MS, do you have cancer? It's just that, people with disabilities need help, and it brings us back to the fact that, right now I feel that we as disability organizations need to get together and to collectively, see what we can do to it. We all keep talking about we need a disability advocate. That's fine. But when was the last time we all sat down, all of the associations representing people with disabilities, and said, look, this is what we need to do. This is what we need to be able to help people, and not keep relying on the fact of a disability advocate. I've been giving a lot of thought about that. Should I call a meeting so we can all get together, or should people call me and offer their thoughts? Because I don't know if other organizations are as busy as I am, but that's my day. My day is dealing with people that have issues, and they turn to me to help, and I help when I can. So,
Absolutely, and the Hub does that work day in, day out, Tom. Look, we had a call yesterday, and you just jarred my memory on this one. I'm not sure if you were listening or someone passed it on. Wasn't in the St. John's area. It was a gentleman in Corner Brook who needed to get to a specialist appointment. Now, he's a quadriplegic. Are you familiar with any of the services out there, or what anyone in the province who finds themselves without transportation to a medical appointment? What are they up against? What kind of...
Brian, again, I keep calling you the wrong name.
Sorry.
It's horrible. It's horrible. In the St. John's area, of course, we have the paratransit system here in the city, the GO bus system.
Right.
That's now being extended out to Paradise and areas like this, and a lot of areas, some organizations would help. But the solution for these people, of course, is an ambulance. That's what they have to do. They have to call an ambulance because there isn't some kind of a paratransit system to get people through these appointments. So that's a need. That's a need right across this province, is to have. I'm not saying every community needs to have an accessible transportation system, but there should be something reasonably centrally located, because if you've got an appointment and you're in a wheelchair and you don't have a van, or you're not able to be moved from your chair, you have to have a wheelchair accessible van, your only option is to call an ambulance. And of course, you know what the results of that are. Somebody who's suffering a life-threatening illness and needs to get to a hospital, and the ambulance is transporting somebody for a medical appointment.
Yeah.
If indeed they'll do it. So, yeah, that's another issue. There's so many issues there that we need, I believe, for all of us to sit down in one big weekend or one big day and say, guys, how do we address these issues? How do we go with one collective voice to government and say, this is what we need? Not one person complaining about this, one organization complaining about this. All of us having a single spokesperson or a couple of spokespeople to be able to go and say, look, this is all the issues we're facing as people with disabilities.
I guess.
And I listened yesterday to that call. I felt sorry for the man,
Yeah, I'm kind of, I would have loved to have had you online too, just to say, what you're saying now, although it wouldn't have helped him in the moment. What would you have told him at that time? I know that you're talking about the ambulance at the hospital, but, we have enough red alerts here to know what that's like.
Yeah. What I could have told him was to say that if he knows anybody in the area that has their own personal vehicle, if they could transport him.
Does the 211 service work, Tom?
Well, yeah, I'm not sure. I'm not sure about that, man. I haven't had any interactions with it, so I don't know. I just know that that's not an isolated incident for people outside the St. John's area. That's why a lot of people we find are moving to the capital city areas because of that big reason, is that if they have an illness and they're not transportable by normal, I call it normal means, they have to access this system, and that's what's causing housing crunches, and that's what's causing yada, 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 because people can't live in rural Newfoundland anymore because the services of that nature are not there. And that's unfortunate, for the sake of having, a $100,000 van somewhere, give it to the fire department. Give a fire department an accessible vehicle, and then have a volunteer fire person drive the people. Now, I don't want to put work on the volunteers in the fire department, but that's just something off the top of my head that could help, would be an accessible vehicle for these people.
Yeah.
But again, there's so many issues here. That's why I keep saying we need to get together as disability organizations and talk and see if we can collectively come up with all of the issues that need addressing and see if government will address them, because they're hearing it from all of us. I'm calling, John Abbott, my MHA, every couple of days, and somebody else is calling their MHA. Well, why aren't we just doing it once collectively?
Well, I guess that goes to the heart. That goes to the heart of the advocate, does it not? I mean, a one-stop intake area that can be managed. And I mean, you talk about. I mean, we shouldn't be trying to invent the wheel here. CODNL exists for a reason. The advocates that are out there are great advocates. All of you, all people who advocate for those for the disabled are. We hear you and we report on. Your regular. Voices on these issues. It seems that it's in a stalled period now. Are you hopeful that this whole issue will be addressed immediately by the new Premier?
Well, I hope so. I did speak to John Abbott, and John said if he were elected Premier, he would commit to put in a disability advocate before the end of this year. Now, I'm confident John's a responsible, respectable man. In fact, John and I graduated from Carleton University in Ottawa the same year, so we have a bit of a connection there. But John, I'm sure, will bend the ear of Premier Hogan, and hopefully we will get a disability advocate before the end of this calendar year. So.
Last thing, Tom, before I let you go, not to belabor it, but just checking on the hub itself, the building. You were putting in the new units, then you had some issues around the election. You called it, I think, a comedy of errors at the time. There was the ramp, and then the water boiler or a pipe that had an issue. All good now, or how's it looking over there? How's the facility?
It's all good. We still got a nasty leak from our roof. We got to get our roof fixed. We got a whole bunch of calls out now to get a price to get our roof fixed. That's a $50,000 job. On that, the ramp itself has been overblown. It just looks bad, but the lower portion of the ramp is fully usable. It's an emergency exit. So we got a few maintenance issues. I'm sitting here right now in the parking lot at Gilly Vance trying to get some lights to put in our exit signs. We had an inspection yesterday from the Liquor Commission, and a lot of our exit light signs are out. So that's what I'm here doing now. So it's always a maintenance issue. It's always thing to go, but we're a good building. It's fully safe. We got a whole bunch of tenants in our building, and I'm sure all of them are happy with things. But there's a couple of things that we need to get addressed in the near future. Yeah,
just when you mentioned liquor license, it just dawned on me. Yeah, you have events there for that. I was thinking, why would the hub have a liquor license? Of course, you have events all the time.
Yeah, of course we have it. When I first went there 30 years ago, of course, everybody was bringing in their alcohol, and it was uncontrolled, so we got a liquor license. So now, of course, that controls everything. And when we have our weddings and functions and all those things, we serve alcohol. And so that's one of the many services that we provide there. So.
Oh, perfect. All right, Tom Babcock, thanks for the call. Always appreciate it to chime in on these issues. And thanks for the background there on And what you can do when you can't get to an appointment is wild, especially a specialist appointment. You wait so long for them, and all of a sudden you just can't get a ride. Anyway, thanks again for the call, Tom. Take care.
Thank you, sir.
And
Okay.
by the way, you mentioned off the top, you were talking to Paddy about that other issue. I'm sure he'd appreciate still if you get a time when he's back to just give him a quick shout and update him yourself on that, because whether or not he's listening or not, and updates his own files, for that matter.
I'll do that. Thank you.
Will do. Okay, thanks again.
Okay.
All right, Dave, where are we going? Off to the break, and we'll be right back. And welcome back to the program. So we're keeping an eye, of course, on the forest fire situation, especially when we have real-time evacuations in place, and we know that some homes have been destroyed. But for a much more up-to-date and detailed account of what's going on, the very latest, and we're still waiting for officials, but our VOCM Zach Power has been on this since early yesterday afternoon into last evening and this morning, following all the developments. And Zach joins us live now on Open Line. How you doing?
Good. How are you, Brian?
All right. Normally I'd be in there with you, chasing and trying to find out where we should go with this and who we can talk to. Let's just be clear first. Is there anything official planned right now for any comment from either emergency measures or the government, someone to give us an official update?
No, and we're still trying to hammer out some of those details as to when exactly we could hear something. It's a little odd that we haven't heard anything yet as to even laying down some times or some rumors of some times. Every now and again in the news business, as you probably know, we'll get, hey, you might hear something this morning, but we haven't heard anything. But we've been keeping in touch with officials, and things have been changing hour by hour, and we're trying to get a hold of anybody who's on the ground and getting a hold of the fire management office at this hour as it changes, like I mentioned, hour by hour.
Yeah, we heard, of course, from people in the area this morning talking about, so the conditions, so fog or anything like that may have been preventing water bombers to get in the air. We don't have any update on that either, hey, whether or not they've been able to?
No, and it doesn't look like we're getting much update on that either, and that's going to be a big part of it. I know that water bombers were active yesterday. There was a little bit of time in between some of the water bomber transitions because they were in other parts of the province. So last we heard last night from the fire service was that water bombers were coming from the Fermuse area, because it's important to remember that there was at least 5 wildfires that were taking place in different parts of the province last night, and that kind of kept crews a little busy in certain areas. We knew about the one in Badger. There was one in Holyrood. The Fermuse fire, that's where a water bomber was stationed. They moved over last night, and they were able to get some good runs in at the fire last night from what we understand. The biggest thing for them is keeping the skies clear when it does become clear, because I know that drones have been a big concern for the fire service for them, and being able to get water onto the site, because they can't really fly if there's drones going around and capturing video and pictures from above.
That's interesting. I mean, that's always an issue if they're in the same airspace, or wow, I don't want to think about what could happen there. So let's hope people use the smarter head on that one. Smarter heads prevail. What is the status of those other fires? Do we know? Are we contained? Is basically the Adams Cove area now? Is that our primary concern? Is there anything else that's still burning yesterday, and how did all that play out last night?
Yeah, so Holyrood is probably one of the big ones that people in town might have been seeing a lot of that smoke from. Between that and Adams Cove, you might have saw a little bit of a hazy sky in Mount Pearl or St. John's CBS area. As of 10:30 last night, forestry officials left the scene of that fire, so they believe that there's no risk to the public safety as of now. Of course, there was a few rumors that it might be heading towards XYZ, but as of right now, there's no risk to the public safety. It doesn't look like there's any appearance of that going towards any structures as of right now. That's just in a little bit of a wooded area near Butterpot Park. So officials, I believe, are coming back at it this morning to check to see if there is still any hot spots that they need to work on. As for Muse, there was that's about 6 hectares in size, and it looks like they were getting some good work on that yesterday. It looks like there was a cabin impacted on that, so we'll wait to hear the update on that, but it doesn't look like there's any immediate risk to the public as of right now. And of course, some of the other ones, Joe's Lake, which is Badger, that one seemed to be pretty well all good to go as of late last evening. There was a couple small hot spots, but other than that, it looked okay.
Yeah, Badger can't cut a break with the flooding and the forest fires. Well, let's hope that one just less. No news is good news. Let's say that for bad. Is that fair to say?
It's fair to say in that regard. Yeah. I mean, I worry about Adams Cove. I think that is really the big one. As you mentioned, of course, there was word last night that the fire had jumped the main road, which could have a lot of devastating impacts to that community. It's a fairly well-populated area. There's a lot more than some people might think in terms of homes and structures and whatnot. And I know that there's a few GoFundMes that have already been set up in that community as well. But this really does have the potential to be very devastating. I know that the wharf out there had some significant damage, and then it's the nearby communities as well, like Western Bay. And you got to think too, firefighters from all up the peninsula and the shore were working on that last night. Even as far as Harbour Grace, I saw some info, and I think Bay Roberts was in that area as well. So it's important to remember that this exactly how big the size is. They're coming all the way from Harbour Grace up that way.
Yeah, and it speaks to how important the water bomber situation is, because God forbid something else should happen in a normal course of a town's operations, beyond a sudden emergency like this. And the evacuation order there is still a formal evacuation order in place?
Yeah, that's what we gather from right now is that they're asking residents to stay away. Obviously, the North Shore Highway is closed at this hour. That's Route 70, I believe, and that's from Adams Cove to Western Bay. And a big thing from the first responders this morning is making sure that people stay away from that area. If you've been evacuated, don't come back. If you want to get some pictures or videos, just don't. Stay away and stay as far back as possible, because they really need to make sure that they're working on the fire as of now. And
Zach, I saw a couple of notes, and I don't want to go down the road of rumor mills and that sort of thing, but I did see an MHA, I think it was Jeff Dwyer, sort of, talking about the situation and whether or not the potential for whether or not it was man-made or not.
Yeah, and that's something that we're going to have to ask of the Premier or the Wildfire Service once we get any details on that. As of probably just after the supper hour yesterday, we haven't heard anything officially on whether or not it's man-made. It's so tough to tell in times like this when they're so focused on getting the fire put out.
Sure.
Getting something official is really difficult, but that's probably one of my first questions here this morning when we do manage to get a hold of the Premier.
And just to be clear, we don't have an official time for that yet. I had heard something about 10 a.m., but that's there's nothing carved in stone. Is that right?
No, nothing as of now.
Okay. Zach Power, thanks a lot. We look forward to anything at all. Feel free to jump right in here. We're, it is the most, pressing issue right now, emergency-wise in the province, and who knows? Let's just hope they're able to get it under control and back to normal as soon as possible out there. Zach Power, thanks again.
Thanks, Brian.
All right, Dave, quick break, or shall we quick break and then back with Clem, and then we have the Minister, Pam Parsons, right after the breaks. Welcome back to Open Line. Brian Callahan in for Paddy Daly today. Let's go like to line 1, and Clem, you're on the air.
Yes, good morning, Brian. How are you doing?
Good morning. Fine, sir. Despite, all some hardships going on around, some tough news in the news, but that's what we're here for. What's on your mind today, Clem?
Today, Brian, I'm calling basically, I suppose, in no sense to announce that I'm going to be putting myself forward as a candidate in the, soon to be called upcoming provincial election. And I'm in the Harbour Main district in Conception Bay.
That's the Helen Conway Ottenheimer's district, is that right?
That's correct, yeah. That's where Helen was currently a member, yeah.
That was a shot in the dark. It's hard to keep track of the districts, and they changed the names and everything else, but yeah. So, which colour banner will you be flying?
Non-colour, I guess. I'm going to be running under the label, possibly of the first person to use the label as an interdependent candidate, not independent, but interdependent candidate.
What's the difference?
Well, if you look, I guess the difference in the word interdependent and the word independent, well, we're all independent. We can all make our own choices about certain things, and we do that all the time. But to be interdependent means that we're mutually dependent upon each other. So, for instance, we got fires on the go right now. So there are people who are depending on other people to show up, who have expertise in that area to help put out those fires. So we're mutually dependent, on each other, for instance, in that way.
So in the same sort of context as interprovincial.
Yes, it's like if you use the word intertown or anything. And so the word interdependent, short definition, means mutually dependent.
So who would you be mutually dependent on?
Everybody. Everyone. We're all mutually dependent. So if I'm your neighbor, if I live next door to you and I'm your neighbor, to be mutually, you're expecting me, or you're hoping, you mightn't be expecting, but you're hoping that I'm going to be a good neighbor, and at least that, like, I'm not going to, for instance, I'm not going to take my garbage and throw it over your fence, and if it happens to blow over accidentally, I'll go over and take care of it, and so on, and you would be doing the same thing. So we wouldn't be doing anything to harm each other. Now, if we're really good neighbors, then what we would do is we would help each other. So if I seen you lifting something heavy, I'd let you know beforehand, Brian, listen, if you're doing something over there and you need a hand, just sing out, I'm here. And vice versa, if we're good neighbors, you could do the same thing if you wanted to. And so by being mutually, dependent, it's kind of like the Hippocratic Oath, where a doctor says to first do no harm. But to be mutually dependent is to go further and probably put the other one first, is that maybe I would help my neighbor rather than harm them.
Yeah, that's opposed to the Hippocratic Oath, which a lot of MHAs subscribe to. Clem, what got you down this road? What's your background? Tell people a little bit about yourself. You're going to offer yourself as a candidate, and in a unique way. Just tell us where that comes from and where you come from.
Yeah, well, I certainly appreciate you asking that and giving me the opportunity to do so, Brian. I wasn't expecting that, but originally I was born and grew up in the Placentia area, from a little place called Point Verde, Placentia. Mm-hmm. I'm from a large family, like a lot of Newfoundland families were, 11 siblings, and so on. And I got one of the things I enjoyed as a child and a youth, and that besides my love for fishing and catching trout and that kind of thing, I grew up participating in the regattas, and so in 1976, our team was the first team to ever win a Triple Crown in Newfoundland, which we'll be celebrating the 50th anniversary next year. And
what was the name of that crew, Clem?
That was the Placentia Lions crew, and that was the same crew that walked the boat from Placentia to St. John.
I was just going to ask, is that the boat? That's the boat. Okay, yep.
So, we've been known to do some things for the first time before, right?
Yeah, no, okay. Again, we're on a similar wavelength. You keep taking words out of my mouth, so I'm going to shut up and let you keep going.
No, thank you very much, Brian. And, in any good conversation, it should be both ways.
Yeah.
Each person has a turn talking, and each person has a turn listening.
Absolutely. That'll serve you well in the house as you get there.
Well, that's one of the things. I've always been a good talker, but I learned to be a good listener over my life, right?
Yeah.
And so, so believe it or not, I wanted to serve for quite some time. I really have, and I love this province that I live in. I love the people, of course, of the province that I live in. And of course, if I lived somewhere else, I'd feel the same way. But this is where I live. This is my home. This is my community for right now. And so I really wanted to serve. So back probably 8 years ago, I did a role on Conception Bay. I did a role for political awareness. And I just put forward my ideas of how I feel we could do much better than what we're doing, and how when I began to look into our system Our system is called a parliamentary form of government. That's what it's called. And our system is about 350 to 400 years old here now, which goes back to Britain. And under that, if you look up the definition, I'm pretty big on understanding certain words. If you look up the definition of the word, parliamentary, our parliamentary system, it is called an adversarial form of government. And now, Brian, what is an adversary?
It's your enemy.
It's your enemy. Exactly. People are wondering, why is it? What is the problem? Why is things not working better than they're working? So we have, for instance, a House of Assembly, and parties sit on opposite. The government sits on one side, the House, the opposition sits on the other. And sometimes when they disagree, they're yelling back and forth across that House. Sometimes they're pointing fingers, sometimes they're blaming, sometimes they're accusing, and sometimes, of course, they're stating factual things. But if you go home, if you have a partner, and you go home in your house, and you stand on one side of the house, and your partner stands on the other, and you yell back and forth all day, what's going to get done in that house if people are simply arguing, yelling back and forth at each other all day? I would feel very little is going to get done. Now, how is it going to affect the children in that house? Are they going to be affected positively or negatively based on the strife within that house? My opinion, and from experience, is that is going to affect those children detrimentally. It is going to cause those children to start fighting with each other and fighting possibly with their parents.
Absolutely. It's as you said, it's an adversarial. It's an environment that is not conducive to children who are sponges. And when you have that kind of back and forth, if it's good back and forth, it's sharing of information, it's coming to conclusions. That's one of the most valuable things that your kids can witness in the regular run of a course of a day in your house. The minute it gets to shouting, backbiting, insults, and all the other stuff that we see go on in a certain House of Assembly every day, no matter what, and we do it because it's the way we've always done it. Ugh. God, give me strength. That's a problem. And you're touching on something here, I have to be honest, Clem, and I won't interrupt you too long, but as you said, give and take. It's the whole, it completely, democratic reform is so long, far overdue, it's not even funny. The way we do things, because we've always done them that way, is sickening, to be honest with you. It's one of the reasons I have trouble covering politics these days. I really do. When you go to a scrum or go to a news conference with ministers and officials, and they're all sitting up at the table, and you know that they know everything about this subject and we don't, it's a game that it becomes a game. It's like we know things, and unless you ask the right questions, going back to the breast cancer scandal, nobody asked the question. So we have to be able to read their minds and know what's going on behind closed doors. It's gotten to the point where I just want to ask the minister at the end of a news conference now, is there anything that won't look as favorable on the government that you haven't mentioned here today, or that we haven't asked about? I mean, that should be the answer, a question at the end of every news conference, if you ask me, because it puts them on the spot. If you do know information that may not look as good, but you don't really want out there, and that happens in government all the time, and no one can deny that. You only want the positive things because you got to get elected. That's the first job. And getting elected, and the second job is getting reelected. So the whole game that goes on there, we know things you don't know. We got to ask the right questions, phrase it a certain way, the words that they use to sort of maneuver around the subject and not actually talk to it. I mean, it's just, it's mind-bending. And after 30 years of 20 of it covering politics and, just straight up with the House of Assembly. I'd rather cover court. At least at the end of the day, you're going to get the truth. Or at least the truth that a judge accepts and that the Crown accepts and that everybody accepts. You may not get the whole story, but at least you're going to get the truth.
Right.
Sorry, that's my rant there, Clem.
It's not a rant at all. What it sounds to me is that you have because of your job, you have tremendous insight into what's happening. You know what, in your opinion, what the most important question is, and you'd like to have that question answered. And there's a place where you just mentioned the word truth, and there's a place where it says you will know the truth, and the truth will make you free.
We'll set you free, yeah.
So, and you just said, also you said about doing the same thing over and over. Well, most people are aware, one of the definitions of insanity is doing the same thing over and over and expecting a different result, right?
Correct.
That's one of the definitions. So, and so what Patty, I was just going to call you Patty.
That's quite okay.
Yeah, you're like me. You're probably going to call it a lot worse.
How'd you know?
Because I'm human. Like
yeah,
you.
Exactly.
Clem,
coming up to the news, but I'll just give you a couple of minutes. I sort of took up a bit of your time, but you go right ahead. I got about a minute and a half left before we got to go off to the news. But just sum it up for me, and tell me last thing, whatever you'd like to throw out there.
Yeah, let me put it this way. I've always wanted to serve for a long time, but I'm not under the current system. So I've heard it said, if you don't like the system, if you don't like something, try to change it. Brian, what I've also learned in life, there's two basic ways of life. There's the way of love and there's the way of fear. Underneath the heading of love, every good thing that you can think of can come under that heading. If you come under the word fear, everything that could harm a person, harm us as individuals, harm our environment and so on, comes underneath the heading of fear. The slogan for the campaign I'm putting forward is there is a better way. I know there's a better way because in 1976, when our team changed the style and the form of rowing, we won the first Triple Crown in Newfoundland. And if you were talking to Randy Ring, who broke the 913, he would tell you it started when we changed the style of rowing, and which led to us winning the first Triple Crown and a second Triple Crown, and our family in 1978 being the first family in the history of the regatta to row as a family with 6 brothers and their dad as a coxswain.
Wow.
I know from experience there's a better way, and when I looked into the current political system, I want to tell you, Brian, if we could change the system, the form, what I mean by the system, the form of government, a greater form of democracy, I can tell you will change everything.
Clem Whittle, I look forward to the multitude of rowing and sports metaphors when the campaign starts. And of course, we don't have a date yet, but I look forward to all the relevant metaphors when we get going. Thanks for.
Brian, one quick thing I'll say is that one of the things that helped us win, we began practicing off to a quick start. No other teams were doing it. We practice a certain thing, so I'm doing the same. I'm applying the exact same thing. I'm off to a quick start.
You are indeed, Clem Whittle. Thanks a lot for the call, for the chat, and setting me off there a bit, triggering me. But I'm glad I got that off my chest, to tell you the truth. Good luck when the rate is dropped.
I absolutely appreciate the time you've given me this morning.
Thank you. That's Clem Whittle. It's going to be a candidate in the upcoming provincial election, whenever that date is. Expecting something to be set soon. It's got to be called within the next few months, at least by October, I think. We've got Minister Pam Parson on the line. We're going to go right to the Minister after the news, which we are going to right now. Be right back. Welcome back to the program. Still waiting on hopefully some official, most up-to-date and current news on the forest fire situation out around Adams Cove. But in the meantime, let's go right to line number 2. And the MHA for Harbour Grace, Port de Grave, and Minister responsible for Women and Gender Equality, Pam Parsons, you are on the air.
Good morning, Brian, and good morning to all your listeners, of course. And first of all, before I start, I would just like to, of course, send prayers and keeping those residents in our thoughts who are enduring those wildfires in the areas of the province where they're happening. It's actually neighboring my district. It's the next district over where they've had the evacuation. So certainly our prayers are with them and also with the firefighters who are on the ground doing everything they can to contain this and ultimately come to a resolution. Yeah,
we echo every single bit of that, Pam, our Minister. You're pretty close there. You're on the ground. It's your neck of the woods. What are you hearing? Like, even just, have you been up that way, tried to get there, or have you been speaking to anyone directly impacted?
No, I haven't, and it's about give or take an hour away for where I am,
Right.
Where the locations are. But I do know that the town of Bay Roberts and the volunteer department there have immediately put a fire ban in place for wildfires, and I imagine that fire departments are doing that across the province, given the time of year. So please God, like I said, we get that contained. Hopefully no lives are lost. And ultimately, we understand that there's properties have been damaged. So, again, our prayers are with everybody involved. Also, Brian, I want to give a condolences to Mark Hiscock. Sam. Mark was an amazing person, and he was a personal friend of mine. I've known him over the years. As a matter of fact, I've even encouraged him to consider politics because of the great person that he is. It's a great loss to the province and such a young man. But I just wanted to send out my sincere, heartfelt condolences to his wife, all of his family, and of course his bandmates. And he and Chris Andrews were like brothers, and of course all members of Shanneyganock. We saw Bud Davidge also, paying tribute. So many lives have been touched by Mark, and he certainly will be missed. So my heartfelt condolences to him. It's a big loss.
And I'm really glad you mentioned that, the forest fires and everything this morning. I wanted to get the most pertinent information out there. We did talk a lot about Mark yesterday when I hosted Tim's show, and, we were inviting anyone who would like to call this morning. Absolutely. And there's more than enough people who would like to call, I'm sure. But, Chris or anyone like that is certainly, I know it's been hard, but certainly Chris or any of the family or certainly any close friends, as you said, we were all just intertwined one way or another, especially, Mark and I went back 30 years or so down to the Skidemia days, sailing out when I first met him and Chris back in 1990, I think it was, when Charlie Anderson was first. They were just sitting in the stern of the Skidemia, playing a few diddlies, as we used to say. And I said yesterday, you could tell then that this wasn't. I remember going out. I mentioned this yesterday. I'll just say it again. I remember going out on one cruise because I would get off at a certain time of the day, and I'd go down. They'd say, "Yes, bye, come on. We just have a gab." So I go out for the afternoon, and it's funny, the tourists, they get on that boat to see Cape Spear and, possibly a whale or two, or maybe even an iceberg around, the Narrows, which a little more rare than, say, around Twillingate. But in any event, it struck me the few times I went out. You think people are looking over the side of the boat and looking at Signal Hill and looking at they're fixated on the two of them and having a ball. It was tough. They had the puffins or the seabirds and the whales and the sights had to compete with Mark and Chris, and it was no contest.
Yeah, we've got a lot of so much great talent, and we're very special. We're special people here in Newfoundland and Labrador with regards to our tourism and our arts and our culture, our talent. We have so many here to be celebrated in this province. And on that note, before I move off this topic, I want to give a big shout out to my good friend and my constituent, Jacob Lewis. As we know, we're seeing him on the big screen now with Canada's Got Talent. And so hats off to him for what he's done. It's very clear that Shania Twain is a huge fan of Jacob.
Even though she wasn't there last time, hey?
Yeah, but hats off to him. He's God love him. He's a good hockey player as well, but he's a sweetheart, and he lives here in my district. I've known him, and of course his family over the years. So good luck to Jacob, and all the very best to him. And anything that we can do to support one of our own Newfoundlanders and Labradorians, that's what we do. We come together. Yeah. But now I do have some information to get out, and I know your time is precious, and I know there are people waiting. So, if I could, I'd like to talk about the brilliant scholarship program that I announced yesterday, and this is in celebration of the 100th anniversary of women achieving, or gaining rather, the right to vote. So I was at Ascension Collegiate High School in Bay Roberts yesterday to make this provincial announcement, and what we will do, we're announcing 100 one-time scholarships valued at $1,000 each, to be awarded through the province based on the following criteria. So community contributions, leadership potential, those who demonstrate passion or initiative for leadership in school and throughout their communities, and of course academic performance. And this will be for women, for girls and gender diverse from grades 10 to 12. And those scholarships are opened immediately. So even grade 12 students who are finishing out this current academic year are welcome to apply, and they will be considered. And I encourage everybody to do that. And again, it's from coast to coast here in our beautiful province, and it is in celebration of the 100th anniversary. Because as we know, Brian, and of course you, being the news expert and the history buff and everything else.
I wouldn't throw expert. I'd be wary of throwing the word expert in there, Pam, but you go ahead.
Women only got the right to vote 100 years ago, so think about that.
Yes.
Going back as far as responsible government, women, they had to fight long and hard for that, and for decades. And of course, as we know, it was led by Armine Gosling and her team of suffragists. And finally, although there was much opposition and ridicule even that these women faced, they won the right to vote and to run for office and to hold public office and to ultimately get out there and cast ballots. So,
Pam, you mentioned the Gosling, just briefly, sorry to interrupt, but is there a date for the statue unveiling in Bannerman?
It's my understanding, and this is led by the great organization Persistence Theatre. It's my understanding that will be unveiled in June, this coming June, in Bannerman Park. So we all look forward to that. And as you know, we were happy to contribute toward this brilliant statue of Armine Gosling of $65,000 for the government of Newfoundland, what we've put forward for that to support them. And that would be only the third woman statue in this province. And one of the three is the famous Amelia Earhart statue, and we know the controversy that has happened here in my home district here in Harbour Grace. We know Amelia, of course. We have rich aviation history. Amelia Earhart took off from the Harbour Grace airstrip, and we're very disheartened. Everybody is very, very disheartened on what had happened, and how. Well, you know the story, of course.
Yes, sir.
Someone took the statue. So
do we know? You're pretty close to it, the MHA for the area. Now, the mayor has talked. Don Coombs has talked about information that leads him to believe that it has been taken apart or somehow dismantled or broken up. If he has that kind of information, leads you to think that it could lead to more. Where there's smoke, there's fire. I hate to use that pun, that metaphor right now. But my bad. But have you heard anything on that front? It's been pretty quiet now since the mayor said that they had information that it was around, but just not intact.
Only what we've all heard publicly. That's all I have heard. But regardless, if there's opportunity to return this statue, whether it be in pieces, I hope that happens. Although many people are not confident that will happen. But it's just really disheartening. Yeah. And everybody is really taking the wind of the sails. But that said, there are many people coming forward who want to throw support behind this, and to perhaps, erect a new statue. And, anything that I can do, certainly as the MHA, it has my full support. But again, back to that statue, and there are only three statues of women. But, with the Armine Gosling coming, hopefully it's the start of a series, because we have so many talented, strong women across Newfoundland and Labrador that are worthy of such recognition. And on that note, I will conclude by saying also this week, I announced the opening of the Violence Prevention Grants, the Indigenous Violence Prevention Grants.
Yes.
Because as we know, May 5th was National Awareness for Red Dress Day. And of course, that impacts, and it's all about the missing, murdered Indigenous women and girls. So here in Newfoundland and Labrador, through my Office of Women and Gender Equality, I announced $271,000 for these Indigenous Violence Prevention Grants at the program. They are now open. So again, I encourage these organizations to certainly apply for this funding. And this funding, the eligibility will depend on, it's about increasing awareness, education, training, investing in leadership development, building community capacity, and as well as enhancing opportunities for healing. And I will say that it's extremely important, and as a matter of fact, it's essential. It's the only way that these initiatives are Indigenous-led. We are here to support our Indigenous partners in these grants and whatnot. So some information there for your listeners. So again, condolences to Mark Hiscock's family. It's left a hole in many people's hearts, especially during the time.
And the ECMA is on the go. Exactly. And Pam, I shouldn't let it go. You're in that perception. You're in that talent pool too, as a great local musician. That people may or may not know. But that's one of the other ways we would have all been connected along with Mark. So.
Everybody's connected in our great province,
Absolutely.
We don't have to look far, and but again, I just can't say enough. We've got so much talent and so much pride and so much to celebrate here in our great Newfoundland and Labrador. So on that note, I bid you a great day. Certainly reach out anytime if I could ever be of any help to you, and of course my constituents here in the great district of Harbour Grace, Portagrave. My constituency office number is 786-1372. Should anybody need my help or look for assistance, we're certainly here to take the call and to do whatever we can to help.
And Pam, just as a member of cabinet, have you had a cabinet meeting on the forest fires today?
No, and as you know, it's a transitioning time. I want to also congratulate our new premier.
Okay.
As you know, so that there's a lot of transition happening right now. The pieces are coming together. We are back in the House of Assembly on Monday, and it's going to be a busy week in that House of Assembly. We've already been put on notice, so it's going to be a lot of late nights.
Got you.
So a lot of work to be done. But that said, congratulations to Premier Hogan, as well as congratulations to my colleague John Abbott on a fabulous campaign. Got
it. Pam Parsons, the MHA, of course, for Harbour Grace, Port de Grave, and the Minister responsible for Women and Gender Equality. Thanks for the call, Pam.
Thank you, Brian.
Okay, take care. All right, a little over the break. Let's go, Dave. Right off the break, got a bunch of callers waiting there. We'll be right back. And we're back on Open Line. Brian Callahan in for Paddy Daly today. Let's go to line 6. And Barb, you're on the air.
Oh, hi, Brian. How are you this morning?
Hi, I'm okay. Better question, how are you doing? I think you're out in the area, hey, around Adams Cove, and
yes.
Tell me what you're seeing.
Well, just seeing a small bit of smoke this morning, but I just wanted to call to let everybody know that the water bomber showed up here about 5-10 minutes ago.
Oh, great news.
Yeah, and not seeing a whole lot of smoke this morning. Looks like everything has calmed down a little, but it was a scary night.
Yeah, take me through it, Barb. I mean, this is, out of the blue. It's May. You're not really thinking about, I don't know how many of us were thinking, other than the people in the business, of suppressing and suppression. I don't think we were, forest fires weren't top of mind for me yesterday. I was just enjoying the first bit of blue sky and warm breeze. But when did it first become sort of real and worrying to you?
Well, I went to the post office to check the mail and sort of up on the hill there in point, and could see a lot of smoke. I'm not sure about what time that was, maybe 3:30 or so.
Mid-afternoon, yeah, okay.
Mid-afternoon, and you could see that it was raging fast. The wind was pretty high. Luckily for us here in Blackhead, the wind was blowing away from us towards Adams Cove. But we had things packed last night, ready to go.
How long have you been in that area, Barb?
Well, I'm originally from this area. I've been back here now 35 years.
Well, and so, I've heard some people talk about, we have these little flare-ups from time to time. But what's your recollection of incidents similar to this?
Seems to be happening more often over the past couple of years. I think Paul Adams spoke about it this morning, the day before.
Yeah.
There was another fire had started pretty closer to my house than yesterday's. And but the fire department were there pretty quickly and had it under control in no time.
Yeah, it's you hear more and more people say it. It does seem to be happening more often if you want to link it directly to climate change, and there's enough science out there and evidence that does. But and it's not like we're in California where you can't really dig these gulches or trenches or moats to separate it all, because how often does it happen? But it's great to see a water bombers overhead. Did you see it pick up or drop water or anything like that?
No, I actually flies right over my house down and then goes down towards Adams Cove. So there's a lot of trees and that in my area, and I really can't see it dropping the water.
Yeah. Well, it's good to know they're on site. I really appreciate the update. Thank you. And by all means, we're here till noon, and the newsroom is on to go 24/7. So anything you want to share firsthand from the area is always greatly appreciated from you or anyone else that's listening.
Okay, thanks, Brian.
Thanks so much. Okay, Barb, thanks so much, Barb. Let's go, not wasting time, got a few calls here. Let's go right to Joe on line 5. Joe, you're on the air.
Hey, I just wanted to mention about women's vote in Canada, that when the British beat the French in 1782, whatever it was, the women got the vote because in French Canada under France, a woman who owned property in her own name, which was the same rule as for the men, had the vote. And they didn't lose it until, I think it was 1814, when the United Province of Canada was formed. And they didn't want to give the vote to all British women, so French women lost it.
No, listen, it's great to be reminded of how exactly these things happened 300 years ago or 250 years ago. We easily lose sight. I mean, it's easy in current day to look back and think that it's been 100 years since just they got the vote. Not with conditions, not with having to have your husband's name on the property, not with having to have land, all these conditions that came attached with you're a woman, but you have to have these other conditions to elevate yourself to male. I mean, look, we're living in a time, obviously, that thank God, for the most part, and you never can't put everyone into the same boat, but for the most part, we've evolved as human beings to the point where we're today, although slow and glacial as it happens with things like the vote. But, I mean, we have to put it in proper context. Easy for us to say that was ridiculous back then, but if you were living back then and in that time, it wouldn't have been so easy to criticize it or even to be foresightedness or far-looking, if you will.
That's right, and it's also useful to remember that what powerful governments give, they can take away.
Yeah, that's always a great reminder too. Not that it doesn't happen in modern day every day, hey?
That's right.
Yep.
Okay,
Joe. Anything else? Did you? Yep. No, I really appreciate the call.
You're welcome.
Yep.
Bye-bye.
Great. Thanks. Thanks, Joe. I'm just going to say it's nice to, have a man call in and talk about that, just on the face of it, as opposed to. So where did you say, Dave, I'm going right now? Oh, right to Alison. Alison Billard, line 1, you're on the air.
Hi there. I just want to call in and share a little good news and raise a little awareness for a fundraiser that I'm a part of right now.
Sure.
My son, AJ Billard, is currently raising money for the Curtis Hudson Memorial Playground.
Right.
His friend Curtis Hudson passed away when they were in the first grade. And so the fund set up in his memory is, working to build a playground out in our community in Gould. And so he's decided to put his hair on the line. He's hoping to raise $5,000 for the playground, and then he's going to shave his head and donate the hair to Wigs for Kids.
I love it. We had a story on this earlier the week, and I mean, just the effort, and this was all AJ's, right?
Oh, totally his idea. I mean, I'm helping out behind the scenes to make all the things happen, but
he came to you, and this was his. I want to do this, Mom.
Absolutely. He's been growing his hair since the pandemic started, after a little incident where I didn't do the right haircut, so I wasn't allowed to do that anymore.
He wasn't the only one.
Yeah, right. So now that it's so long, he wants to donate it, to a good cause, and we wanted it to have as big an impact as we could. And this playground is very important to our family and to our community. And so he said, well, let's set a big goal and see if we can reach it to help them get closer to their goal to be able to build the playground for, it's going to be called Curtis's Place there at Gould Elementary.
That's just, I get a little shiver out of that. I mean, one kid doing this for another, it's just... especially lost to cancer. These stories and the efforts that people make in their memory is just, it's the best tribute, the best way you can show, there's nothing we can do. The heartache and the grief that comes with these, just taking people just way too soon. It's just cruel and sad, but Shave to Play. Only $5,000. I bet you're going to do better than that.
I'm hoping. I'd love to see it go to 10 if we can. But certainly, we have an event on Facebook where everyone can find us. It's just called AJ's Shave to Play fundraiser, and we are accepting donations by electronic transfer (EMT) at shavetoplay@gmail.com.
Right, and if you go to vocm.com and look up that story with AJ and just the fundraiser, I've Shave to Play, you can even just Google that. You can see the lovely long locks that he's willing to do to part with for this.
He's willing to part with,
just wonderful cause, and the fact that just the way it worked out, with COVID, and now he's got them and he wants to do this for. Awesome.
For sure.
Just
and
fantastic.
A little update, I guess, just to say, even in just our first week, we raised $1,300.
Oh, my God. I mean, yeah.
So we're well on our way.
This is going to be one first-class playground.
I think so, for sure.
Absolutely. Alison, thanks so much. Good luck with it. Keep, I'm here today, but keep Patty posted and us here at VOCM posted on the progress of it. And let's get out there when the unveiling and the ribbon cutting happens. Can't wait.
For sure. Thank you so much.
Awesome. Thank you. Okay, a little late to the break, but getting there nonetheless. We'll be right back with Pleam and Forsey talking about Badger. Welcome back to the show. Right on to line 3. And Pleam and Forsey, the MHA for Exploits, you're on the air.
Good morning, Brian.
Good morning.
Good morning. Yeah, Brian, I would like to give an update on the Badger fire, of course, that happened there in Central yesterday afternoon. I was in contact with the officials yesterday of the department and again this morning, and seems now the fire is under control. And at this point, Brian, I would like to thank the department, and the first responders for their quick work in knocking down that fire. And of course, I guess they're still monitoring the hotspots there, but it was good work, and kudos to everyone involved, of course.
Yeah, are you on the ground out there, Pleeman, or you were in town?
I'm in Bishop Saul's, actually.
Oh, very good. So, I'm just wondering what what you thought when you first heard this yesterday, and I mean for all MHAs, I guess, wondering about I don't want to call them a plethora, but there were certainly a few, and it was a little tense around, feeling around various parts of the province for a while there yesterday. Not the least in Badger, where sometimes it must feel in Badger like it doesn't rain but it pours, and I hate to use. I'm using some bad metaphors here this morning, but you know what I mean.
Of course, yes. Actually, Badger was the first one that I did hear about yesterday, early yesterday, probably around noon, a little after. And it always creates thoughts of what is happening. And then, of course, later on that afternoon, then we started hearing fires in different areas, especially in Western Bay and Mews and that area. And it certainly makes the mind think, of the dry conditions and her early springs, short winters and that we're having, Brian. And, we all, it's all our responsibility, I guess, to make sure that we enjoy the outdoors and what we're doing at times. But we certainly have to pay attention to what we are doing. Everybody enjoy the outdoors. And fires can start very, very quickly, and we should be all self-minded of that.
Yeah, I mean, we don't have Santa Ana winds, thank the Lord, but we have winds. I can tell you that. They don't have to be hot to be pushing fire around. Just a spark from a garbage can in the backyard can lead to. I mean, we just have to be so aware. It's just tinder dry out there. It's why they had the forest fire season start early, officially. And lo and behold, somebody knew what they were talking about. And I mean, not that, as you said, not that we don't know that the times and the climates are changing, eh?
It is, and I mentioned this with Patty actually a couple of weeks ago. That we did have a shorter winter this year for sure.
Oh my God, yes.
Now we're in for we're into a drier spring, and I'm assuming a hot summer like we had last year. And you throw in a bit of wind with that, Brian. And it's perfect conditions for wildfires. So the government certainly needs to support our forest fire capacity. To make sure that the department has all the tools and resources that they need, because I tell you, those crews and officials, Brian, do a great job. And again, I certainly would like to commend them for all their efforts, and certainly firefighters involved, and first responders, anyone involved in those fires today, and throughout the summer, I guess, that take part in that, and thank them very, very much.
Absolutely. Pleeman, you're okay with there's a lot of talk, especially from the opposition, regarding the water bomber fleet here in the province, and the 4 that we have, and the 5th one that won't be ready this year apparently, but will be next year. Are you satisfied that say your district and others are you're good to go, and you feel comfortable with the amount of protection that's available?
Well, I've been told by the department that they're ready to go for this summer. Their capacity is well under control. So it's unfortunate that we don't have the 5th water bomber certainly going into this spring, and hopefully, and it's good to see that the government has made initiatives to have that water bomber back for next year, and hopefully it does, Brian. This certainly tells us that we need all the firefighter capacity that we can provide to our province and the people to make sure the safety of everybody is concerned.
And Pleeman, last thing, you're looking forward to getting back in the house. Should be an interesting time.
Yes, it is. Always nice to get back in the house. I guess next week we'll get back in. Of course, we're under a new premier, and I certainly would like to congratulate John Hogan on his victory as becoming the new premier. And we'll get in and we'll continue as is, with some of the issues that are around, and of course, healthcare, cost of living, housing, those concerns are always there, Brian. And those some of the stuff that certainly we're debating during our budget debate.
I appreciate that. Cleveland Forsey, MHA for Exploits. I want to thank you too. You mentioned Brian at least 4 or 5 times there without saying Paddy, and it's no easy feat because Paddy, people always, and they apologise, but. Pretty good focus there, considering I'm just filling in here, and I know how easy it is just to get into the routine. So thanks for that.
I did have to bite my tongue.
Attention to detail is pretty good. It's good sign for an MHA. Cleveland Forsey, thanks for the call. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Okay, good luck back in the house next week. That's Cleveland Forsey right there. Let's go now to line 5, and John Brooks, you're on the air.
Good morning, Brian. How are you?
Hey, John. I'm good too. How's this St. John's Masters Senior Softball League?
We're getting ready. It's only 11 days before the season starts. For the listeners, the St. John's Masters Softball League is an over 40 men's league. Although the average age of our players is probably between 50 to 60, so. Those of us that are in that age range or a little higher really appreciate the word masters as opposed to old timers. But in any event, we're gearing up. We're getting the field ready. We're behind, as you know, Brian, because you've played in the league. We're behind Elizabeth Towers at Bill Rawl Park. So we're getting the field geared up. Players are in place. We have 8 teams, 16 players, and we're getting our sponsors finalized. And we should be ready to go on May 19th. We'll run from May 19th until mid-September. So those of us that have been playing for a while and doing this for a long time are really looking forward. And the weather, the weather seems to be cooperating here lately.
Yeah, cooperating for a softball league as opposed to not necessarily for, it's bittersweet, right? I mean, can't bring on the summer.
That's true.
But on the other hand,
yeah, we're all very concerned about what's happening, of course, in Conception Bay North right now. So I'm gratified that VOCM is covering this to the extent that they are. This is just an absolute tragedy.
Yeah, and we are waiting. I think we have the minister responsible for emergency preparedness, Bernie Davis. I believe he's going to join me after 11 o'clock for an update on just the whole lay of the land, literally. But John, something else interesting I wanted to just throw at you. So last couple of years, I don't know how long you've been doing this, but still in the sports vein. And I haven't played up in the league for a couple of years, but I can't wait to get back there. But beyond softball, you've got a great little gig that you like to take on the last few summers with a certain international golf tournament up along. You want to tell me a bit about what you're doing there?
Sure. And just before I start with that, Brian, I'll just give a final plug for our league. This is a great league that we have.
Oh, the charities! I definitely wanted you to throw that out.
Softball, yeah. We do. We do a lot of outreach. We have several charities that we contribute to. We have a midsummer tournament in July where we support Kids Eat Smart, which is a great breakfast and lunch program for kids. So I invite anybody in the public to please come up during that tournament, or come up anytime to the field and watch. But at that time, you'll get an opportunity to see and support as well. And at the end of the year, we have our championship. We have contributed the last few years to prostate cancer in Newfoundland and Labrador. So that's some of the that's some of the outreach we do. But anyway, getting back to the golf. Yeah, for the last few years. I've volunteered with the RBC Canadian Open as a marshal. One of my good friends from the West Coast, David King, he and I have known each other for a long time. We're both golf fanatics, and we've been doing this volunteer work. This year, the RBC Canadian Open, it's our national national golf tournament is in a place called the Osprey Golf and Country Club, which I understand, I don't know Toronto very well, but I understand is in the north part of Toronto. So we'll be going up there June 2nd to June 9th for the tournament. It's over 4 days, of course. So really looking forward to the experience. And basically, the marshal is one of those people you see. Anybody who watches
telling
golf,
everybody to shut up.
Yeah, it's great. No, I mean, I'm only kidding, but it's crowd control, especially not just around the fairway, but around the tee box, but in particular around the green, when obviously the players are kind of, they're concentrating and focused and that sort of thing. But it's a great experience. It's great to volunteer and be involved in the process, but quite frankly, it's great to be inside the ropes and to watch these, pros who are essentially, some of the best players in the world, because this is a regular stop on the PGA Tour, and it's our national championship. So it's a wonderful opportunity, sort of both ways, to be a volunteer, but selfishly, it gives me an opportunity to watch these players close up.
Yeah, John, and it was only 2 years ago. Can't let this go without mentioning you were there when Canadian Nick Taylor won the Canadian Open, and that was yes. Crazy enough on a 62-foot putt, 72-foot putt, I think it was. Now I'm thinking, I just remember the 72, because
I was very
yeah. You were there about a few yards away, and not just for the win, but when Adam Hadwin, professional Canadian golfer himself, trying to go up and celebrate with Nick, gets tackled by the security guard on the green. It was bizarre.
Yeah, it was a tremendous privilege just to say that I could be there live. Obviously him making that putt was so unexpected, because those of us that were watching were just hoping that Nick Taylor was going to two-putt and then continue on the playoff that he was having with Tommy Fleetwood. But he made it. The people went absolutely crazy, and then in the aftermath of celebration, his close friend Adam Hadwin came out to congratulate him, but of course the security, he was dressed in his non-golf outfit with his blue jeans and his beat up golf sweater, and of course the security guards didn't realize that this was Adam Hadwin, so he got tackled like a play out of the NFL. Yeah. And fortunately was not injured, but yeah, that was kind of bizarre. And I don't know, quite frankly, Brian, which event has been more on YouTube or TikTok. Nick Taylor making the 72-footer,
it's
or
neck
Adam
and neck.
Hadwin getting tackled. But it worked out. But yes, I was privileged to be there. When this happened, because he was the first Canadian in 69 years to have won the Canadian Open.
Well, let's hope for something close to a repeat of the win, but not necessarily the takedown on the 18th green.
It should be interesting. There'll be a lot of Canadians. Canadians are really at the forefront now in terms of the PGA
Corey
Tour.
Connors and Pendrith, and
there's 7 or 8 regular players now, and of course, there'll be a number of players, not just from the United States, but Europe. Rory McIlroy, the Masters champion, will be there. Mm-hmm. He's a great supporter of the Canadian Open, so it should be a really good field. Looking forward to it, and just looking forward to the forward to the experience as well.
Yeah, it's not just going to be a token Canadian, hopefully, on the leaderboard. I mean, Corey Connors just made a run at the Masters, and Pendrith wasn't far behind, and we got a great crop. It's only a matter of time. John Brooks, thanks so much for the call, the info on the Masters League, your little trip up. We look forward to a debrief after you get back from the Canadian Open, and your other hat in the legal profession. I'll see you in the courts.
Okay, thank you very much, Brian. All the best, of course, to everybody that's going through this tragedy in Conception Bay North as well.
Absolutely, I echo that. Thanks again, John.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Thanks. Okay, a little late for the break, off the break, and then we're back with Vic. And welcome back to Open Line. Let's see, a few minutes before we get to the news, but we're going to squeeze in Vic here. Vic, you're on the line. On the air, sorry.
Good morning, Brian.
Good morning. So, Vic, I may have to, depending, there's a few issues I know we want to talk about. It's a great subject, but a lot of areas where we can go with it. So if you can, we get into it. May ask you to hold on till after the news, but go for it.
Oh, thank you, Brian, and your
Sure.
listening audience. Thank you for taking my call.
My pleasure.
Yes, I seen the news the other day. The Roman Catholic Church is, I think, going to court to regarding the church there in Portugal South.
Right.
I guess my question is now, what about all the churches in Newfoundland under the Roman Catholic authority? Do we own those churches? Will the court now, when they decide who owns this church in Portugal South? That's one question. The other question I read in the paper, I think several years ago, probably I think it was 2 or 3 years ago, 3 possibly, this Roman Catholic priest, his name was Peter, it's in the paper actually, Father Peter Power. He was up for sexual assault, actually, but now there was no follow-up on that. I wonder why, by NTV News or the CBC. But I recently learned now this priest has been convicted, and I think the judgment, I think there was. I think they gave him 4 months home arrest. So I was wondering why the NTV or the CBC didn't follow up. I'm beginning to wonder, what authority or what really the Roman Catholic Church still has on on our justice system or people. Also, this priest is a brother of one of the chief of police who joined the Mount Cashel inquiry. Which, of course, I wasn't aware of this before, but I thought really, because I remember during the Hughes inquiry, I think there was 2 chiefs there. I think he was the guy that replaced the older gentleman, but there was certainly some lacking of activities or work in that area, and it appears that from my readings that. What I can see in the news in my readings prior to or during the Hughes inquiry, that a lot of those cases at Mount Cashel, I understand the police was aware of those cases, also justice and social services. So I'm just wondering, have we moved out of that area? Or we're still in this area there, where the Roman Catholic Church has, influence in our society that's really not good for our children.
Well, I can't let that go. I mean, Vic.
I know you probably can't comment, but I mean.
Well, I can comment, absolutely. I just don't think so. That's my comment. And I don't think so only because I don't know everything about the machinations of prosecutions going behind closed doors. Nobody does until it gets to a conviction or at least to some resolution. We know. In the late 70s and the 80s, and go back to the Hughes Commission, which was one of the first major stories I ever covered as a journalist in the early 90s. The time has come, and to be honest with you, with a lot of these cases with Christian Brothers, because there's so many and so much went on, it's hard to keep track, Vic. Now, that's not an excuse. It's not an excuse for journalists or anything like that, but you try covering it just alone, the bankruptcy proceedings regarding the Roman Catholic Episcopal Corporation, and the various claimants, of course, which there are more than 100, and the process that continues to play out over how the money will be dispersed and how much and everyone will get. And these other issues regarding sales that were sanctioned by the province and by the Supreme Court, the different assets that were made available to the church to sell, to pay off the claims by abuse survivors, and actually survivors that did not survive, I should mention as well. So, just keeping track of it with everything else that's going on in courts, it's hard. Every single priest, it's sad to say, every case is as important as the next. But when there's so many, and then these other subplots, such as what's going on now in the courts, in the Supreme Court, as opposed to provincial courts, although both cases can go either way, but this particular, the bankruptcy proceedings have to happen in the Supreme Court. justice. And so just keeping track of that on top of the parallel cases of convictions that still go on, including priests that have still been shipped to other parts of the country to avoid prosecution. But Vic, as I mentioned off the top, we were close to the news as it was. We're right on the news hour now. If you can hang on for just a quick minute, I'll give you a chance to wrap up and any other thoughts you have, including the fact that the conclave has gone to a second vote, or the second one has come up with black smoke, so they're going to go to a third vote. If you want to hang on for a minute, is that okay?
Sure.
Great. Let's finish that chat, Vic, properly after the news. Let's go off to the news right after. Let's go off to the news, Dave.
You're listening to a rebroadcast of VOCM Open Line. Have your say by calling 709-273-5211 or 1-888-590-8626 and listen live weekday mornings at 9 a.m.
Welcome back to the program. Did Sarah Strickland just say 19 degrees out? It's 19 degrees in Metro. Lovely. Let's go. Let's see. We can get Vic back in a bit. We will. Let's go first to Kurt. Kurt, you're on the air, line 2.
Good morning, sir. How are you?
Good morning. Good. You're calling from Edmonton?
Yes, I am.
How about them Oilers?
Well, you know what? That's not why I called, but I'll gladly chat up. The city is more than excited. I actually phoned Patty a year ago, right before Game 7, and we all know how that ended.
Yeah.
So I'm hoping to, call him again with a different result. So I guess time will tell, So we're one up against Vegas. So hopefully that trend can continue, and we can. I can only imagine how the city would react if we actually managed to get the cup. I've never witnessed this in my life, so it'd be something to see, and I'm certainly got my fingers crossed for that.
Oh my God, Edmonton, Toronto. How about that?
Well, to be honest with you, I know. Being a Newfoundlander, most people expect you to cheer for the Habs or the Leafs, and I cheer for neither. I kind of came out here and I grew my admiration for the Copper and Blue, and Edmonton's been good to me, so I'm not to disappoint anyone home, but I don't like the Leafs. So
no. Hey, listen, I don't think you're alone on either of those fronts. You're living up there, and you've adopted that, and you don't like Leafs. I mean, that's hey, not that uncommon.
That's just it. But speaking of living up here, one of the reasons I've called home. So living in Western Canada, especially Alberta, we've had our scares of forest fires. So between Slave Lake and Fort McMurray last year, I'm sure you remember Jasper very, very well.
Absolutely.
And when I heard of what was going on back home, I do have roots on that side. My mother's side of the family is from Burn Point, there in Conception Bay North, and I still have family there, and I have family in Ocrapit Cove as well, and they're clearly concerned with what's going on. And living out here, you have a certain appreciation for rain that I didn't have when I was still living back home. The past few years, it's been terrible out here. We actually had a fire the other day relatively close to where I live in West Edmonton. They had to cut the substation because the fire was getting too close to the substation, so they cut the power. I was out of power for 3 hours just the other day, and then when I heard about what's going on out in Adams Cove in Western Bay, I thought, my goodness, is it dry in Newfoundland too? It's never dry in Newfoundland. So I guess you guys, do you have a mild winter or what? We did.
We had a dry winter and we had a short winter. I mean, look, you can kind of tell it by how many times in your head did you have to go out and spend the morning shoveling. And maybe 2, maybe 3 for me. And I'm right downtown where it's the hardest to do it. So and to find a place to put it. So in the back of my mind, what context and time is like. You may think it was worse than some other times. I think there's one thing that's you can't deny, and that forest fire seasons are worse than they've ever been. I don't think it's going off on a tangent to say that it's the effects are showing.
You're not going off on a tangent at all. You're 100% right. I've been out here 19 years, and forest fires in Alberta, especially in BC, it's nothing new. We've been hearing about it. I've been hearing about it all my life, but it just seems like these past few years they've been awful. Like we're literally getting in forest fire mode as early as mid-April. Yeah. We start hearing about the grass fires, and on the news the other day, the one I just told you about, and me and my wife were both like, "Oh, here we go again." It's like I don't have the patience for this, but it's the reality. So that all the people affected back home, my heart goes out to you guys, and hopefully they can get it under control and get it out, because good for anybody.
Yeah, just one last thing on that note before, because I know one other thing you want to talk about, but this is April. Well, it was. This is May now, but in April. This is Newfoundland in April. I mean, you could still get a storm, and we did. We had lots of snow in April, actually. We had a couple of big, days where you wondered, okay, so the spring was just a tease because you had a couple of warm days, and then it came back again. So to get an early start to the forest fire season from, a news release from the government in early April when it was still snow on the ground, it was almost like, really? But yes.
Yeah.
But yes, they were right, and lo and behold, one first really warm, kind of sunny, breezy day yesterday, and lo and behold, we had 3 or 4 or 5 broke out. And some of them may have been natural, and some of them may not have been by natural causes. We'll wait to see what happens. But Kurt, I know you wanted to also have a word there for Mark Hiscock.
Yeah, I did. Being an expat, there's 2 main things that make you feel homesick or bring you close to home. One is Newfoundland food. Okay, so if you cook up a feed of jigs or fish and chips, it brings you right back home. But the other one that's more immediate and then quicker to arrange is the music. So over the past years I've been gone, many bands and artists and voices have brought me close to home. Everyone from Harry Hibbs and Simoni and Matchless Men. It just goes on, and you can bet that Shanneyganock are high on that list. I own all their albums. I think they're absolutely fantastic. I've seen them live, home for a visit a few times. And when I heard of Mark's passing yesterday, I thought that's just awful, because he had a great voice. He was great on stage, and he connected with the crowd very, very well. And when my mother had texted me, oddly enough, it was like 2 or 3 texts in a row. One was about the fires, and then the next one was about Mark's passing. So it was a pretty depressing communication, I should say.
No kidding.
And then I thought, oh my goodness, what's going on back home? So my condolences goes out to the Hiscock family. He'll definitely be missed. The thoughts of Shanneyganock album. I don't know if Chris and the rest of the guys are going to audition or if they're going to keep going. Who knows? But the thought of a new Shanneyganock album with Mark Ladd on it is I don't know if it's possible.
Yeah, and look, we all know Mark is a great musician, and what Shanneyganock, and just the great person Mark was beyond the music. But when you think about, and I think about this yesterday, Shanneyganock. There was an explosion of trad bands in this province, especially on the success of Great Big Sea, when they kind of made it more mainstream and started incorporating a band with a drum kit. As opposed to the 5 Buys or something, or 2 or 3, which is great. I mean, the Irish Descendants, when I was growing up, it was the 5 or 4 of them. You didn't really incorporate the whole kind of rock to it, that ad. Yeah. But when that started to happen in the explosion, but for Shanneyganock to find that niche, within all the other bands that were coming out, and I could list off all the great traditional bands in this province, beginning with Irish Descendants and going down the list, and Chicana and all these other great bands, but it wasn't easy to find a niche, and Chris and Mark found that. Some people would say, oh, God, another, how different can it get? It got different, and they made their niche. They found a way to just, all you need to do is go to the Delta parties, the Christmas parties with Shanneyganock, to see, even with the youth, they got the youth back into it as well, and those were young. This isn't the old fogies heading out to listen to a bit of diddly. This is, the youth are packing that place, and they're loving it, and they're regurgitating the old great traditional Newfoundland songs. And tonight, and of course, as I said yesterday too, these passings, these sudden tragic passings when we lose such a giant, always seems to happen when they're about to be celebrated the most. The East Coast Music Awards happened the night before, and I mentioned to a filmmaker yesterday, I was thinking of Gene Hackman. Latest example of, dies just a few days before the Academy Awards. Lo and behold, perfect opportunity for everyone to eulogize and say, and just give him the proper tribute he deserved. And with Mark tonight, they're going to, the gala is going ahead tonight, the East Coast Music Awards. And they're going to play tonight. Shanneyganock will perform tonight at the Mary Brown Centre, and they're going to dedicate the set to Mark, of course. I don't know how we're going to get through it, because it's hard enough for us, let alone people who are living side by side and living with him, literally, in music and in community with him for his entire life, So
I imagine how difficult it'll be, yeah.
Yeah, and I'm going to be there tonight, and I don't know how, but I'm glad I'm going to be able to see that tonight, be there for that, and be with everybody else, all the other friends of Mark, who are already missing him deeply.
Well, yes. Well, my condolences to his family and his friends and those who knew him, and I'm glad they're doing that tribute tonight. I know it's going to be pretty tough on the band, especially Chris. He's up front and singing, so he'll probably find it the most difficult because he has to sing. But I'm glad they're doing that, and so I just wanted to reach out. I wanted to call back home and say my condolences to his family. He was a great singer, and he'll definitely be missed.
And Kurt, I thank you very much for that. Thanks a lot. Take care. Good luck, and keep us posted. Check in from time to time. Let us know how she's going up along, and especially as the Oilers get closer to a repeat at the final.
I certainly will. If we get closer, I'll be sure to call back. Okay, hopefully I can brag.
Absolutely. Great. Thanks, Kurt.
Thank you. Have a good day.
You too.
Take care.
All right, Kurt in Edmonton. Let's right on the break there, Dave. Let's take that break, and when we come back, got Trevor in Trenton, and of course the Minister responsible for Emergency Preparedness, Bernie Davis, right after the break. Welcome back to the show. Without further ado, let's go right to line number one. And the Minister of Justice and Public Safety, Bernie Davis, is on the line. Good morning, Minister Davis.
Yes, Brian. How are you this morning?
Well, it's a busy day, interesting times and tough times, of course, as I'm sure you're aware. And I'm hoping you're calling. I know there's not a lot you can say about what the situation out in Conception Bay North there. I believe, and I'm looking through in the way ministerial portfolios change and that sort of thing. You are still responsible for emergency preparedness and fire and emergency services,
yes.
Correct?
Yes, I am. Yes, our team is working very closely. And first and foremost, I'd like to, empathise with those individuals that have been impacted by the wildfires. I think it's devastating any time someone's life is impacted that way. It's challenging. Just want to make sure everyone understands that the provincial government is fully engaged on this file. We're closely monitoring the situation. We have a fulsome approach from our emergency to this emergency through the Provincial Emergency Operations Centre, or we call it PEOC. And they're working with the community partners in the region to ensure that the information is being disseminated and sort of quarterbacking the whole response for this area and this emergency. So I just wanted to say a big thank you to the town of Adams Cove, the RCMP, the firefighters and the crews that are on the ground doing that, the mayor and his team out there, Curtis Delaney, for doing a great job and working very closely with our team on the ground as well. And, there will be further updates that will come this afternoon. We think that obviously the weather is looking a bit more favorable for us, which is nice. We've got ground crews engaged, and more crews are on their way or being deployed to that area as well. We're going to continue to monitor the situation. We have helicopters monitoring the situation. We're working very closely with multiple departments in our government as well. And I've already had a conversation with Minister David McGuinty, the Minister of Public Safety in Ottawa, about this very topic and the willingness for them to help if we need them, and just sending their well wishes to us to make sure, and the full assessment of the site is ongoing.
You mentioned ground crews and helicopters. Is there a bomber in the air?
We understand there's bombers in the air that are doing some work out that way as well. That's operational in nature with respect to that. So we're working very closely with Fisheries, Forestry and Agriculture on that. That sort of leads the charge from the bomber side. We're obviously the town has enacted their emergency prepared plan, or management plan. And we're working very closely with them to support them in any way we can. I know our Fire Commissioner's Office is working with the volunteer firefighters that are in the area that are providing some great support. I just encourage the general public to try to stay away from that area as best they can. And if you have concerns or things, please direct them to the town. And the more information that we put out will, if this worsens in any way, we're going to continue to provide contact information where people can reach out and do that. So we also have some things in place with respect to places where people can go, locations for those that are evacuated. They'll be listed in our news release that'll come out later on this afternoon as well. well. But there's Persalvic Elementary School. There's a building in Critchus Road and the Lower Island Cove, Salem Community Centre in Small Point. Those are just to name a few of those areas that the town has done a great work on with us to try to ensure that the individuals that are impacted have a place to shelter.
I know you mentioned a news release and updates maybe this afternoon, but this is such a fluid situation and urgent. People are evacuated, homes have been lost. Is there anything you can tell me about the extent of the damage on the ground and impact on residents?
Well, I don't want to get into specific numbers because it's still a moving target. As you said, it's very fluid. I think it's close to 600 hectares or 6 square miles of impacted kilometers of impacted forest and area. There's a number of building sheds, that would be impacted, garages, houses in some cases as well, or many cases. That number will be more determined as we clue up the emergency here, because obviously ground crews are going to go in and assess the damage and see what's been dealt with from that perspective. There's still hot spots that are out there. Ground crews are working through and evaluating those. As I said earlier, the weather looks favorable, which is something that can change on a dime in Newfoundland, as you know. But we're going to continue to be monitoring that, not only with, the crews on the ground, the water bombers in the air, but also helicopters that have been out there as well, monitoring situations, see if there's growth in the area, in this area. We just encourage people to stay away from that area. The RCMP have done a great job of barricading the area, blockading the area so people can't come in unless you have some reason to be in there. There's public ads that the public ads will provide more details on locations and more details that'll come as it comes available. As you mentioned earlier, Brian, it is a fluid situation. I wanted to make sure people understood that there is a significant number of departments within government, but also community partners that have been working diligently together. There's multiple meetings every day. There's hourly updates that will be coming to each of those individuals. And it'd be remiss if I didn't say, thank you to the municipalities that are working very, very hard and their staffs and the volunteer firefighters and the firefighters that are fighting within the forest as well that are doing some great work. I mean, most people are running away from these disasters and they're running towards them, and for that we owe them a debt of gratitude. And we've also engaged the Red Cross as well as the Salvation Army, and they're on call to help those individuals that have been impacted.
Minister, I know you mentioned a news release. Will the Premier or somebody actually physically meet with media, give us a briefing, or is it just going to come out in the form of a news release at some point?
We'll be meeting with the media on a regular basis when requested to do so. We're working through.
Okay, request is in.
Absolutely, and that's part of the reason why I'm on the call here now. We wanted to make sure the information that we had, we're not going to hold it and provide. We're going to get it out as much as we can, as fast as we can through individuals in the media. And thank you for being one of those that reached out and get us. There's other media that have reached out as well that we'll be reaching out to as well. There will be, as more information is available, that information will be provided in all forms, not just news release. It'll be provided in all forms. So we want to make sure that people understand there that we're working for it, and we want to make sure people have the right and correct information, because sometimes in these cases there's misinformation, or people are providing information that they think in the best of intentions is correct, but it may not be. So we want to make sure that there's a voice out there saying that this is the correct information, and I encourage people to check out our provincial government websites that will have that information up and running very shortly, and that will provide them the best information. And there's no better place than talking to your municipality out that way as well that can give you some information. They've been fantastic to work with our staff, so I just want to send a bouquet to them for sure. Yeah,
we're all about getting the only information we really want to put out there is the most accurate and official, and it's been a little bit difficult this morning. I mean, we know that there's a forest fire duty officer who wasn't able to speak this morning about the situation, so we had to wait for something official. So we were just getting some calls. We're like, why isn't somebody speaking to this? So we appreciate your time about it. And just the last thing, this is only May the 8th. How much does this concern you already when you started seeing this develop yesterday?
Yeah, Brian, we've been concerned based on the winter that we did have, that we knew that this was potentially going to be a very challenging fire season for our forests, and we know that we're planning for that. We've made investments in fixing as a government. We've made investments in moving along, getting the fifth water rammer evaluated and fixed. So those things we envision this happening. This is part of climate change that's happening all over the world. I'm sad that it's happening early in the season like this, but we're going to continue to work as fast as we can, making sure we've announced a fire center in central Newfoundland and Labrador that's going to help train individuals, and it's going to provide us a significant amount of infrastructure and resources to battle these fires that would happen on our doorstep here in our province, but also in other jurisdictions near us.
Bernie Davis, the Minister of Justice and Public Safety, of course, responsible for emergency services, and the MHA for Virginia Waters, Pleasantville. I really do, Bernie, thanks so much for finding the time. We really needed, a good government, solid official government voice on this. So I appreciate it, and we look forward to more information as soon as you get it.
And we'll be going out as fast as we can with information as we got it, Brian. We want to make sure it's out there. We have to make sure all those community stakeholders are providing that information to us when we have it. That's what those meetings are for. So thank you for your patience. And I thank the public for their patience as well.
Yep, and thank you for the call, and keep us posted.
Absolutely.
Okay. Thanks again. Bernie Davis there, Justice Minister, Public Safety, and responsible for emergency preparedness, right up on the 11:30, a little bit past it. My apologies. Right after the news.
The Tim Powers Show. Join the conversation weekday afternoons at 4 p.m. on your VOCM.
Into the home stretch for the Thursday edition of Open Line here. And Sarah, within a half hour, gone up to 20 degrees here now before lunchtime in the metro area. You got to love it. Let's go right to line 3. And Trevor, you're on the air.
Hey, good morning.
Good morning.
Hi. I just want to call in to pass on my condolences to the Hiscock family. I'm calling from Trenton, Ontario. And a few years ago, I ran into Mark's uncle Bill here in Trenton at the Home Hardware. Small world.
Yeah.
I'm from Clarenville, Newfoundland. And I ran into Bill, and we got talking, and invited me back to his house, and we're talking about Mark, and then told him I was in the military. I asked him what I was doing here, and then he brought out his Royal Newfoundland Regiment, World War I medal he has.
Wow.
I just stopped by their place. I'm actually just left, and dropped off some flowers on a card to the Hiscock family. His Uncle Bill here. He's actually gone out turkey hunting this morning, so he wasn't home. But birthday party there next week. So that's, I just wanted to pass on my condolences to Mark. And I enjoyed his music. And I guess the next thing is support your local musicians. Head out tonight and check out Colin Harris at the Republic.
Absolutely, and Colin's a good friend of mine. His daughter and my daughter kind of grew up together in school. Great musician. Supporting local, I'm all over it. I'm sort of in that realm myself as a side gig. I try not to take away too much from the professionals who are at it for a living, but I love it too much, so I'm occasionally down in the gigs of it too. But Trevor, everything you said. So you ran into Bill at the Home Hardware. When was that?
I got to use COVID as a measuring stick.
Sadly, we all do.
I'm going to say it was maybe around 2019, possibly. But about a few years now.
Yeah, that's a pretty, as Canada, it doesn't get much more Canada than Canadian Tire and Home Hardware. And you didn't know at the time, I guess, that Bill was living there in Trenton?
No. He had a sticker in his back of his pickup truck.
Oh.
Newfoundland sticker.
But you said you dropped by their place, though, did you?
Yes, I did. Yeah, he invited me back to his place.
And so they live. And they live in that area.
They just live down the street. Yeah,
wow.
Not far from me.
Oh wow, great. Great in a sense.
So when I met him at his house, he's like, "You don't happen to know who Mark Hiscock is?" I was like, Of course I do.
Yeah.
He goes, oh, that's my nephew. It's like, no way, get out of here.
That's what I was trying to get to, the bottom of how that conversation went and how that revelation came about. Yeah, small world, Newfoundlanders everywhere? I'd say so.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, Trev, look, I really appreciate the call. You know, we've had a few from off the island today. It doesn't surprise me. I expect them from all around the world, from Mark and anyone who knew him, anyone who had any engagement with him whatsoever, because he was engaging, if nothing else, and he was so much more than nothing else on every level, you know, from the music that we all know, you know, and his mastery of the accordion, let alone other instruments. I mean, you know, the accordion was his thing, but oh man. And just, you know, other issues, you know, I mean, you're from Clarenville. Yeah, I'm sure you probably, you know, appreciate Fort Amherst here in the Narrows in Newfoundland, Labrador, where Mark grew up and his family has lived, and the advocacy he did for the area, for everything from problems with the sewage to the way it looks to the upgrade to just everything. You know, he was an advocate in so many different ways, but just the nicest of guys. And this is just too sad to happen to such a great guy. I'm just still can't really get over it. But I suppose tonight the ECMA gala will be a good chance for all of his friends to be able to just reflect on how great he was and how great a loss it is. So, Trev, thanks again from Trenton, Ontario. You were in the military. You still in the military?
No, I retired last September.
Where'd you serve, if you don't mind me?
Mainly here in Trenton, Shearwater, Nova Scotia, and then overseas, Afghanistan, and pretty much everywhere.
Wow.
Everywhere on the map.
Well, great Newfoundlander up along. Hopefully you get back. Clarenville's looking pretty good these days. She's booming.
I'm going to be home very soon, so yeah, I can't wait.
Great. Trevor, thanks for calling. Really appreciate it, and thank you for your service.
Thank you very much. Have a great day.
Okay, take care. Don't be a stranger. Great. All right, great. Trevor there from Trenton, Ontario. What do you think, Dave? We're close to the break. We take that break and then go right to Janessa after the break. Let's see. Take the break now. And welcome back to the show. Just a few minutes left now. We're going to go to Janessa in a moment, but just a little update. It seems, you know, all eyes are on smoke today, whether it's here or in Italy. So they have broke for lunch, we're told. Now, it's about a 4.5 hour difference from Newfoundland to Rome, to Italy. Kind of the same going the other way to Vancouver. So 4.5 hours difference. They're ahead of us. So, you know, it's going around supper time now, coming up to dinner time in Rome. And then the Cardinals are going to go back at it. And by all indications, there seems to be some hope that they will be able to come to some consensus tonight. They need 2/3 of the 133 Cardinals that are voting, 2/3 of them, and the ones that aren't over 80 years old. I guess that would rule out Trump, wouldn't it? If he had a vote. But in any event, let's see. So they're hoping, and one of the chief cardinals there, one of them speaking for the others, is saying that they are hopeful that the fourth and potentially fifth rounds of voting will result in the election of a new pope by tonight. Of course, tonight could be overnight if it's a bit later in the evening, especially for these parts. So we're keeping an eye on that, and as well as the smoke out around Conception Bay North, which is certainly less to be celebrated. Let's go right to Janessa on line one. Janessa, you're on the air. Good morning.
Morning.
Hi. Where are you calling from, first of all?
Calling from the AYLA in Lower Island Cove.
Right. So this is one of the designated sort of shelter areas where people who have been displaced by the forest fires in the area. People call them wildfires, forest fires. Not sure. But have you had much uptake on the center there, Janessa?
We've had a few people avail of it. We've had people come and go for, you know, their breakfast, lunch, you know, what have you. We've had people stay overnight.
Right. So just to clarify, what is the AYLA Center, AYLA?
So it stands for Association for Youth and Leisure Time Activities. We're a non-profit organization. Do senior and youth events. We have an annual regatta in the summertime. We use our upkeep from the community. We go based on volunteers.
Wonderful. And so you're not necessarily next door to Adams Cove area where this is happening, but you're close enough that people can avail of it, eh? I mean, it's not how long a drive would it be from, roughly?
10, 15 minutes roughly from us.
Yeah. Are you talking to people who are coming in, and what are they telling you, and how do they feel about? I'm sure there's quite a bit of uneasiness, to say the least.
Well, that's exactly how I'd explain it. It's uneasy. No one knows how to feel, I guess. No one knows what they can go home to, if they're going to go home to at home. So they're unsure.
What's it been like for you? I mean, this is all out of the blue a little bit. I mean, the centre does great work, as you said, for the youth of the area, but this is a different role. How did you mobilize this? How did you come together to decide here's what we can do, or did anyone contact you and say we may need you? How did that work?
So we have a group chat between our executive, that's the people who stand on our building. So we got together and said we need to open our doors. We got people who got nowhere to go. We need to figure out what to do. So we put a post on our Facebook group and just said that, looking for some food if anyone has anything to do. People start cooking, people start making sandwiches, and everyone kind of came together. We've had volunteers between here, Old Perlican, Beatty Verd, the rest of the North Shore. We've had people from the seashore. We've had people come from all over to help out. So it warms my heart to see that so many people come together when in hard times.
It's interesting because when you just started saying it, you get the sandwiches and everything ready. That's in our DNA. I mean, whenever something happens like this, it's just the mobilization of smaller communities in order to, okay, what do we need? Let's get food, let's get water, let's have a place that they can go. I mean, we saw it to an exponential level on 9/11, but it's just something communities do. I mean, and like you said, it warms your heart. It's something that it's tragic and it's really sad and people are going through a really rough time, but it gives you some kind of meaning in all of it, does it not?
It do, yeah. Like I said, it warms my heart to know that there's people out there that you can depend on for something so bad.
Yeah. Okay. Well, look, Janessa, appreciate the call. Can you smell the smoke? Can you see anything? Like, what's it feel out there? I know here in Metro last night, even though, yeah.
There's scalding our air, and it just smells like a campfire every time you walk outside.
Yeah, not a fun campfire though either, hey? You're not in butter powder.
No. We're not roasting marshmallows.
Unfortunately. I look forward to that, but first let's get through this just horrendous situation for people out in Conception Bay North. Janessa, thanks again so much. By all means, keep us posted here. I know you have the number for open line, but certainly we're trying to stay in touch with all of the areas out there that are offering help and welcoming people who are going through their worst day. Let us know how it's going. Keep us posted. Hopefully this all settles down now and we can all get back to a bit of normal and there won't be too many occurrences. God help us, it's only the beginning of summer.
Thank you so much.
Thanks again. Great. Thanks again for doing what you do.
And our doors are always open when listening. We're always here.
Right. So you can just drop by. You don't need to make any arrangements. If you need to be there.
No, my goodness, no.
Yep,
just come through the door.
Right on, at Lower Island Cove. Thanks again, Janessa Wheeler. Okay, let's take our last caller of the morning. I guess, Dave, let's go to Pat on line 5. Pat, you're on the air.
Brian, I don't know. I was thinking it's appropriate, and like I said to David, don't want to stir any controversies or anything out here. But still, if this is something that needs to be looked into, in my opinion, I've seen from many residents last night via social media and that, and one was on TV program, but I can't find now. It seems like that segment later got deleted from the program versus the live online version of the broadcast.
Well, I can't speak for other media, but what exactly was it that you saw in that?
What's going on in Adams Cove? Apparently, Adams Cove and a few other communities, Carbonera somewhere, the day prior there was a number of brush fires that were put out and people called it. But anyway, where this fire broke out, there's 2 or 3 different residents on last night. He said where this fire originated to, talking to the landowner who owns that land, that he did not set no brush or he wasn't clearing no fire in that area. That this is suspicious in nature. Someone set these fires is the suspicion. that the landowner that owns the land where this originated did not set fires and get away from it accidentally, that he had no knowledge of fires being set on his property. That's what I'm hearing from residents out in that area.
Yeah, well, I mean, Pat, you hate to fuel, no pun intended, but fuel any rumor.
Whether it got away from somebody, but I'm just saying, it's appearing that this is arson of some nature.
Well, arson,
and that needs to be investigated. If that's the case, the police or someone should be investigating out there. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, no, and it's okay to say it. Obviously, if there's any kind of evidence, they'll, that's what they're there for, to look into it, and whether or not there was an intentionality to this. I'd hate to think that it was that. I mean, we know that people make mistakes. We all make mistakes.
Definitely. Definitely. And people don't realize how dry it is, especially grass, especially if you set grass or something on fire.
Well, let's just
hope.
Anyway,
I'll leave it at that, Patty. At that, Brian. I don't want to create any controversy. It's just putting it out there that's what people in the community are saying, that to everybody's knowledge, nobody set a fire that accidentally got a control out of them. That nobody, unless someone is afraid and hiding, but everybody is saying that no, there was fires there apparently in that same community the evening before or 2 days before that were put out of a suspicious nature. And then these fires again the next day. Why wasn't the town fire department, why wasn't someone monitoring the town when they had already previously in the week put out suspicious fires prior to this?
Yeah, and I know officials have said they will get to the bottom. They'll do their best to get to the bottom of what happened here. But I think it's a bit early. I think right now the initial concern
right now
is to make sure.
That's what I don't want to upset anybody either, Patty. Brian, because there's 12 plus homes lost so far that we know of.
Yeah, that's
okay. Thanks, Brian.
No worries. Thanks, Pat, for the call. No, absolutely. That's the obviously the immediate concern now is safety, protection of homes. Get it out, and we can talk about the investigation later and what may have caused it. But in nothing else, it's a wake-up call. It's early in the season, so. Batten down the hatches. Just a few minutes to go here on the show today, and I wanted to bring in Greg Smith. Producer Greg Smith, of course, we all know, household name, piece of furniture, face and dusty piece of furniture, face and voice of good old VOCM here. Going back to Mark Hiscock, Greg, I know that you emceed an event last night, and there was a toast to Mark to kick off the ECMAs. How was that?
Yeah, we had a kickoff party last night, well attended, and just before we got things going last night with our guest speakers and stuff, we did a little toast to Mark, obviously on the minds of a lot of people in that room last night, and a lot of people, as you're walking around, you're seeing people you haven't seen in a while, and you're giving your hugs and saying, how you doing? Like, goodbye, higher day, right? So it was nice to see that, and I know Con O'Brien and the Arsenals performed, and they dedicated Let Me Fish Off Cape St. Mary's to Mark last night, because obviously Mark was doing some work with the boat tour that Con's.
What wasn't he doing work with, right?
Yeah. So they dedicated us on to him, and it was nice to see your peers in that regard, because you got to talk about things and see how it was going. So the kickoff was last night, the award show tonight, and then there's a whole bunch of other festivities, and Shanniganlock will perform tonight, obviously, at the award show, as you've mentioned this morning, and pay tribute to Mark in that regard, continuing that performance they were scheduled to do. So, yeah, that's going to happen tonight down at Mary Brown Center, and there's still some tickets left if people want to go.
Yep, working, I guess, at the box office or whatever. That's going to be an event tonight. Yeah. They will play tonight for the first time without Mark. Mm-hmm. Any ideas who might pick up an accordion?
I don't know if I can say.
Okay, well, I had to ask.
I don't want to put any secrets.
And
out
we didn't plan this, so I just asked the obvious elephant in the room question. And no, I guess if you're going tonight, we'll find out then. If it's not a public thing, then that'll be something we'll all see tonight in the moment, and I'm sure that'll add to the emotion of the evening.
Yeah, for sure.
Great stuff. Thanks, Greg Smith.
Thank you.
Back to the multitasking that you got going on there. Great show today. Thanks everybody for bearing with me while I fill in the big shoes that Patty wears on this show and in this studio. Dave Williams, thank you, Dave, for everything. That's about it. All I got to say is please slow down. I swear to God, there's some quiet little residential areas around here that's going to just be a tragic scenario in these days from what you see on the road. So drive safely, arrive alive. VOCM cares.